Let's talk some hockey, shall we? And 90% of the time, that's probably a good idea. Shall we talk about the Vegas showcase?
Where do we begin?
Where do we end?
Yeah, that's a good point. We were off to a great start. Christian, you got that? Write that down. Chuck hasn't sung yet, so that's good. I think we need to do that. That sounds like a fantastic idea.
I like it. Glad we survived the Armageddon.
Yes, we did. It all started 156 days ago, back in October, down in Carlsbad, and we wrap it all up here today in Irvine. Welcome to the Report Card on Facebook Live here from Great Park Ice, 5 Point Arena. I'm Eric Pessolano, you know Chuck Lasik, you know Mike Perkins. Also joining us today on the set from Black Dog Hockey, it's Andy Dickerson, the founder and CEO. He's our boss. We have to make sure that we do things correctly here today. So we invited him on. Andy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How was the flight coming down? We know you had to make a trip from San Jose.
It was from Sacramento, actually.
You came from Sacramento.
Yeah.
All right.
With the move up to Roseville a couple years ago, that's the closest port for us. So it's great airport, clean ride down here. Always is.
That trolley ride to the
Yep.
right?
Yeah, get to the Southwest Terminal B, and it's an hour and a half flight down to John Wayne, and then a little jaunt down here to Irvine, and it was great. And the action yesterday was fantastic. This facility is
I was just going to ask you, Andy,
gorgeous.
What do you think of the new building?
Yeah, the building here is amazing. I walked the whole thing yesterday just to kind of scope it all out, and obviously there's still some things that are under construction. It was opened, not quite 100% finished, but it's an architectural feat for sure, and there's great hockey being played here every day.
No, well, thanks for coming down and joining us. We're going to talk about Black Dog Hockey a little bit later on in the show. Andy's going to stick with us for the entirety of the show as we wrap up the 2018-2019 Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League season. We've already given away 2 banners. We had a couple of championships last night here at 5 Point Arena. We kicked things off in the Harbor Conference. Number 1 Capistrano United, number 2 Damien, and it was the Spartans who pulled off the first upset of that bracket.
Well, they came out hot and heavy and very fast, and I think it was really surprising to the Capital Coyotes, who had downed them earlier in the season. So for Damien, they came out, they got on the board quick, and they just made it very difficult for Capital to get back in the game.
Yeah, they did, and it was a tight one. At least we thought it was going to be going into that second period, Chuck, when Capistrano finally got on the board with Adam Abig, but Damien was just too much the rest of the way.
Basically, and Coach and I talked about it all last night, is basically every time Capo forechecker touched the puck, there was at least one, if not 2, maybe even sometimes 3 back checkers on the puck carrier. They had no room to breathe, let alone any room to move. And I'll tell you what, that start they had, Coach, we don't like to use as much in high school hockey, but they punched them in the mouth.
Damien did a fantastic job of closing on any puck that Capo had, whether in the offensive zone or off their attack. Damien was all over him, and if a guy did not get to the puck, then there was somebody in support behind him, which made it very, very easy for Damien to transition the puck back the other way. And of course, you have to mention Sean Heritage in his game last night. He was the catalyst for that Damien Spartan team and helping them attain their championship.
You see them throwing all the equipment and celebrating on the ice at 5 Point Arena. 4-1 was the final score. The Spartans pick up their second title in school history. They are both JV titles, and it's their first one since the 2011-2012 season. You mentioned Sean Heritage, a couple of assists last night. He was our first star of the game on Black Dog Hockey as the Spartans take home the JV Harbor Conference title, 4-1 over Capistrano United. And that was the first of our doubleheader here last night. We then switched over to the Lincoln Conference final, Pacific Ridge and St. John Bosco, and the Firebirds came out on top. They got their first title in school history.
Yeah, but if early in the game it didn't look that way. As Nick Nelson for St. John Bosco, and the goaltending of Kevin Zamazel was just fantastic to start the game. But then as things settled in, the play of Olin Silverman and of course Riley Frost for Pacific Ridge was very fun to watch, and an exciting game for all of us to see. And when you see some young guys like that have some great games in a championship game, you're going to see them at the varsity level very soon.
And Coach, you mentioned Owen Silverman. My gosh, I mean, small in stature, but just 12 feet tall and hard. That kid just can make plays happen all the time. And just relentless energy too. Honestly, you never saw him quit ever, and he was on the ice. I want to say at least 60% of the time.
Well, his vision was probably the best. Is one of the best parts of his game. His ability to see where everybody else is, not only just his own teammates but the other team. He has a great, high-quality hockey IQ, and that's going to benefit him here in the future.
Yeah, congratulations to Juan Trevino and Pacific Ridge for their first title.
Although, even though they lost, you have to give Kevin Zamazel, 2 thumbs up right there for St. John Bosco. You want to talk about a goaltender that could have stole the game right there? Kevin was right in position to do that for the first 2 periods. Unfortunately, basically his skaters in front of him, they were tired of chasing players in their own zone, and they finally wore it down, and Zamazel couldn't handle the load that was shot at him.
Typical of Pack Ridge and how they play. Just wear you down by the time they get you to the period. You just start running away with it. That's what they did again last night.
Yeah, Andy, I want to ask you, because we don't see a ton of JV action, right? We don't cover it a ton on the network anymore. We had the All-Star game earlier this year. What were your impressions of the JV championship games last night?
They were very competitive, especially early on in the second game. Things got away from Pacific Ridge a little bit later on in that game, but it was good hockey, and it was good for us to be a part of, to be able to put it on the network here and see it. Especially that first game, Damien and Capistrano United going back and forth. We were talking beforehand. You actually said it on broadcast early on. It was a rematch of the Varsity D2 final from 2013-14. So it's a storied programs that have been around for a while, and then you have the contrast in the later games, or the later game I should say, with St. John Bosco and Pack Ridge. You have 2 newer teams with their JV teams and their programs developing, who funny enough were playing each other at the varsity level back up in Anaheim. So it's a great reflection, I think, of the depth of the league, and certain programs in particular that can have top players both at the JV level and the varsity level, and it was just great for us to be able to highlight that.
One thing I do want to mention, Chuck, is for Pacific Ridge, their head coach Juan Trevino was here at the JV game.
Check.
Trusted the varsity team enough. He wanted to come down here, watch this development, and was in the building when his school got their first title.
You know what? And after our first visit to Pack Ridge, I fell in love with them last year as well. But basically, I've learned to love this, just the entire program. And Coach Trevino, I mean, you want to talk about innovator and just a way to build a hockey program. Obviously, they don't have football, so they're using hockey kind of as the crutch for football. And the school's taken it by storm. And not only that, he's developed that program where you not only have you're competitive at the varsity level, but at the JV is level too. So he has a great feeder program coming up there. And I'm telling you, there's great things happening at Pack Ridge. I'll be happy to go back there next year anytime.
Yeah, and they got one more shot at the title later on tonight when they have the D2 final here in this building. By the way, because Pacific Ridge and Damien won championships yesterday, the trend continues. No team has ever repeated as JV champion in the Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League. So that tells you about, what's your favorite word?
Parity.
There it is.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite words. And just as a side note too, we got to get like I want to be Alex Trebek back there and watch you and Andy discuss Anaheim Ducks high school history from the time Black Dogs started covering, because I think you guys would go point to point. I can't keep up with you, and he's sitting there already throwing stuff out that I've never heard of. So I'd be very interested to see you two go on a match mano a mano.
Now, I'm going to be honest.
I don't fit into the equation here?
You can, but you've been on the bench a lot of the time. So, I mean, if you want to try, you're more than welcome. You can be the third guy. You can be who plays the third guy in Saturday Night Live, whoever the guest.
I'll be the guy with the low numbers to start, and then I come in at the end.
Yeah, I'll be Will Ferrell and Alex Trebek. How's that?
That'd be great. I think Andy would probably do a little bit better than me, because this guy's scrubbing clips constantly. All the clips you see on Black Dog Hockey, all the ones you see here on the report card, and the ones you see in the building when they put them up on the Jumbotron here, Andy's the one who puts them all together, so he gets to scrub through the history. He knows
I guess
a little
that's the
more
one
than
thing I
do.
want to ask Andy right away is, listen, Andy, you've been around a long time. You were doing play-by-play when I first came into the league, and where do you see where it was and now where it's at? What are some of the good things that you've seen the league advance to?
Well, I mean, we've been involved in the league now for 6 years. We started back in the 2013-14 season, and our initial thrust of getting involved was just to try and cover the Bellarmine games up in San Jose, because we were based out of the San Jose area and primarily doing tournaments there, and hadn't really had much expansion beyond a few college teams. from my relationships back from playing college hockey. And, getting involved and having the opportunity to partner with Chuck and Eric at that time, and then Mike, of course, coming on and working with Matt to take over the Anaheim side at the same time. It was a big leap for us, and it gave us a window into Southern California hockey.
Who's the young guy that you used to have to do the color? The long hair guy, the young guy with bigger guy, dark hair. He was always very excitable. He used to do our Bellarmine Chase Air games, and I used to get a kick out of him. He gets so excited over Zeke Estrada and Mason Pilkington. No, it wasn't Walt.
I can't recall off the top of my head. We've had a lot of people that have rotated through.
Yeah.
We've had
I think his name was Sean.
I'll have to look back through the staff archives. I know we've had a lot of people that have come through that have worked for us, that have been a part of this. It's been a great group of people. In particular, Justin Allegri started with us, who actually has moved on and is the voice of San Jose State football and men's basketball. As well as if you play MLB The Show, he does the interstitial. He's the menu guy.
Oh, really? Really?
So he goes down to San Diego and reports that. So that's a fun little tidbit there. But we've had a lot of great people that have come through, and to answer your main question, from starting back when we were doing primarily the Bellarmine games, and I was more intimately involved with stuff in San Jose, the level of play overall across the divisions has raised considerably. There obviously are more teams playing now than there were back at that time. Bellarmine was the forebearer of NorCal expansion, and you now see St. Mary's and Tahoe Hockey Academy at the top level, and you can really see the impact that it's had on both halves of the state. I think involved, and just overall, it's been great to see these kids come up and play. We sorting back through the clips, going through memory lane, putting together the stuff for the last show where we were going through the top players of all time was a lot of fun. Just to see where we've come technically with the quality of video we're doing and a lot of different stuff we're doing, and to see some of the names come back through and looking up. I was looking up their elite prospect page and seeing Jared Southwell at Colorado State. Parker Dietz with his 4-year career. We've now been in the league long enough that we've covered seniors that have gone on and have finished playing college hockey. So it's been really fun to see players doing that. And now with the expansion of junior hockey, especially out west, we see a lot of players move from the Anaheim Ducks Hockey League straight to junior, especially with our coverage with the Western States Hockey League. See a lot of players with the Valencia Flyers, Ontario.
So you guys so Black Dog Hockey is also doing Western States Hockey League, also doing ACHA club hockey. At what levels are you doing ACHA club hockey?
We have 4 of the 5 different levels that they offer at the ACHA level. We're offering, and that's ACHA Men's Division 1, 2, and 3, as well as we have a Women's Division 1 partner now with Grand Canyon University that we cover
very good.
for their Women's D1 team. So we have about 30 college partners spread across the country, all 4 time zones. With the Western States League's expansion into Canada this past year, we now have partners up in Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Did I see that you have the Citadel on your...
We have partnered with the Citadel the last 3 years, the Military Institute in South Carolina.
Very cool.
That's been a fun expansion out east, and we've had John Carroll University and Slippery Rock at ACHA D1 level that are up in Ohio, Pennsylvania. So we've got to see a lot of the teams up in that northeast corridor as well. And then we partner with down in the southeast, Florida Gulf Coast University. We're partnered with now for going on 5-6 years as well, and they've been the Division II national champion a couple times while we've been with them. And so hockey's growing all over the place.
All right, well, that certainly makes me feel young.
Who's the biggest?
I know that much.
Who's the biggest alumni of Florida Gulf Coast?
Who's the biggest alumni from Florida Gulf Coast?
Lefty.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, and all of a sudden I can't think of it.
For the Red Sox now. They ripped us off.
Chris Sale.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right. He did go to Florida Gulf Coast. I forgot about that. Yeah, good heads up there. But, I mean, talking about all those players, and Andy mentioned that we've now seen a lot of the high school players go on to play college. Their college careers are over. It certainly makes us feel young. I know that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stop it.
So, of course, today is the big day here at 5 Point Arena in Irvine here at Great Park Ice. You see the trophies are laid out. They're not going to be here for much longer because we need to hand them out later.
That's true.
That's for sure. We're going to start things off a little bit later on with the Varsity Division III Championship. It is the Commissioner's Cup Final. Let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. 2 conferences in Division III. We started with the Catella Conference, which was chalk all the way through. There wasn't a single upset throughout that entire bracket, and it all culminated with Corona Norco picking up the victory over Villa Park, a 3-1 game. That was over on the Olympic side a couple of nights ago. And you look at some of the games in here, and there was not a ton of surprise in that bracket. But overall, you knew Corona Norco was probably going to come out on top, although they did it a different way, Coach.
Yeah, listen, I mean, Corona Norco's it's been a program in our league for several years now. They've had some good seasons, then they've kind of roller coastered a little bit, but it's really good to see them back at the top right now and competing for a championship here tonight.
Yeah, that was a high-flying offensive team, Chuck, but they came out of the gate and they needed to play defense to win all these games.
You took the words right out of my mouth right there. Corona Norco, at one time I think it was averaging 8.5, 9 goals a game.
Yeah.
And they come back and they've been winning some games, not by those margins. I think you have 3-1, 3-2 or something like that. So you had 9-1 against Servite, but you come back, they won 3-2, and then they come back and beat Villa Park 3-1 right there. So I mean, it's not the easiest road for them, but they're showing that not only do they have their offensive prowess, but they have some defensive chops as well, and some goaltending as well.
That 3-2 game you talked about was against Beach Cities. They had to go all the way to a shootout to get that victory. Well, they're going to see Irvine United tonight in that Commissioner's Cup Final, and these Warriors had to upset their way through the tournament. Of course, they ended up knocking off the number 1 seeded Edison Chargers, and that was a huge game that we talked about earlier.
I cannot believe it, but kudos to Coach Hutchison and Coach Silver and their work with their team over the course of the year. Of course, we all know that Jacob Hahn, the goaltender, is very steady and sturdy in the net and has been a key piece to their success here in the playoffs.
You talk about being sturdy in the net. We are going to have a heavyweight goaltending matchup tonight in that Commissioner's Cup Final. Evan Pollock probably going to go for Corona Norco. Jacob Hahn for Irvine United. Good luck to anybody trying to bury the puck tonight.
No, exactly. You know what? The one thing I think you forgot to mention, though, too, is how they had to come back in that Douglas Conference Final against North County. They were down 2-0, and they had to scratch and claw, and we saw that the momentum that North County had created by upsetting kind of their way through the bracket right there. And basically they came out, and once again, I'm going to use that word, they punched Irvine United in the mouth the first period, and all of a sudden you start seeing that claw back. And it took them a couple, and I was shocked at the end of the thing when I got the text saying they won. But congratulations to Irvine United. One heck of a job. Yeah,
and North County put up a fight through this bracket. You mentioned it. They were the 7th seed and made it all the way to their conference final.
And they had an upset in their preliminary game as well. So obviously some good things going on in San Diego. Obviously at the Division II level and now in Division III level. So it's just going to make us stronger in our league to have teams in San Diego, teams here in Orange County, and teams up north all competing for championships.
Talk about the top 2 seeds in that Douglas Conference. They went a combined 1 and 2 in the postseason this year. Edison, the only team able to get a win there, and it was a big one over Santa Margarita in the first round, but both bowed out after that, and then it was the lower seeds the rest of the way. So Irvine United and Corona Norco for the Commissioner's Cup Final. That game will be at 4 o'clock tonight from right here at 5 Point Arena. We'll have it for you on Black Dog Hockey. The 3 of us knuckleheads will have the call for you on the air later on tonight. It's going to be a ton of fun, absolutely. Moving on to Division II, and this was the division that this year we said was going to have the most parity. It played out that way. I'm not sure we expected Pacific Ridge to come out as the number 1 seed going into the postseason, but they certainly pulled it off. And Andy, we saw a lot of Division II action this year, especially with teams from out in Vegas. Vegas Gray came out, made it all the way to the semifinal. They were the 3 seed going into the postseason, and those teams out there in the desert certainly impressed us in year 1. How about you?
Yeah, the Vegas teams have been a great addition to the league. I think we can all agree on that, especially because it gives you guys a trip out to Vegas each year for the showcase. So having that involved is a win in itself, but the fact that the teams are competitive at the Division II level has been a great addition to the league. And those teams are good. The Golden Knights are hitting it out of the park at all levels, not just at the NHL level, which we all bemoan here as fans of other Pacific Division teams, but also at the youth level. That when I was profiling for a podcast I used to do a few years ago when Vegas was announced as an expansion site. The thing that we looked at was how are they going to be successful, and what is the key thing to growing a fan base. And if you look at around USA Hockey, the team before Vegas that had the smallest number of enrollees as USA Hockey registered adult and youth players, if you had to guess amongst all the other NHL cities, who would you choose?
Dallas.
I was going to say Dallas. I was going to go maybe Phoenix. Although
Well, the only reason I said Dallas is because Dallas has kind of been the model for everybody. When they moved from Minnesota to Texas, they went in there and they created a grassroots program and built rinks, very much like what Vegas is trying to do.
Right.
What we've done here in Orange County and what they've done in some other markets around the country. So
the answer is actually Nashville.
okay.
Nashville in
Makes
the
sense.
entire state of Tennessee only had about 3,500 registered youth and adult hockey players, and that's not just the Nashville municipality, which is what you're trying to mainly draw from. In Las Vegas, in the state of Nevada, there were only 550 registered adult and youth hockey players. This was about 2015, 2016. So you're looking at 6 times fewer. You see how successful Nashville has been, especially growing in the last decade in particular, and turning into a hockey city.
plus
So
missing teeth, so I don't have to worry about that.
yeah, well, there were a lot of people that were thinking that may be something that would be difficult for the city of Las Vegas to overcome because there were so few players. But they are growing the game at the grassroots level, and we're seeing the benefits here in the Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League of that. That if you were to look at the enrollees in the state of Nevada, I wouldn't be surprised if that number is close to doubled, if not more, at this point, because of the building of City National Arena and
There's
the
no
investment
doubt
in the local youth
you're right. They've done a
infrastructure.
fantastic job there. The new facility there, City National, and just the whole area right by the Red Rocks Casino and Hotel there, resort, is it's a destination for people to go to, whether it's for a tournament or a showcase or whatever it might be. Then now they're going to have that new baseball stadium right there
Baseball
as well.
stadium's gorgeous.
So there's a lot of things to do in Summerlin now, and I think it's going to attract a lot more hockey players. Of course, they've had a little bit of a hockey culture there in Vegas prior to that, but you're right. Creating with the NHL team coming in and creating that grassroots programming and building from the bottom up and creating a good strong fan base and customers for a lifetime. But that's all a lot of things that we see here, and that's really what this building is about as well, is creating that same type of feel, maybe on a little bit larger level. California's a little bit more advanced than Nevada or say Tennessee, and probably more so in Texas and Arizona as well. But we got the same thing going on here, and that's what's so exciting about Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League, the new Great Park Ice and 5 Point Arena. This is just awesome. So it's fun to see Vegas doing it, but I think it's fun to see us doing it too.
What I'm really interested to see, sorry, Eric, is they're building a brand new facility up in Reno that's going to open in the next year or two that is supposedly going to house the AHL franchise for Vegas, because they don't have their own AHL team at this point. They've been farming out from the Chicago Wolves or piecemealing from other teams. So the reports were that it's going to be an ECHL or an AHL franchise that's going to go into Reno and may transform that area to make it so that, kind of like Northern California and Southern California, you have 2 hubs at both ends of the state that now will have an NHL franchise and an AHL franchise that players could build around. And in Reno, they really sorely are in need of a top line facility, because they haven't had that for many, many years. If you look at the Mickey Lang, the former coach of the Tahoe Icemen of the Western States Hockey League, I'll pull from that. He's spearheading that effort actually to build a facility up there, because his argument was that there's 60% of the players that are coming to South Lake Tahoe to play in the Tahoe Grizzlies organization are actually coming from Reno, because or the Truckee High Sierra area, because they don't have a good rink up in that area. So you could see a secondary transformation happen up there that would be fueled again by the Golden Knights investment in the youth culture in the state of Nevada.
The good news is this: it just makes everything else stronger all around the area on the West Coast and the Southwest, and it's just going to keep building hockey, which we all want to see.
Yeah, we do, and we saw it a lot here in the Vegas Golden Knights, who have
Got
joined
Seattle
into the
coming
league
for us,
this year. We had some milestones with them this year. Of course, we had our first ever playoff game. That was gonna. I don't know. These guys are signaling to me.
There needs to be another set of cameras on the show going behind the show.
Yeah.
And what's going on back
Apparently,
there?
there's more action going on back there that is clearly not
we need some
distracting us.
outtakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
We're getting there. Everybody trying to rush us over. It's our last show of the season. Would you let us have this?
You're worried we don't have enough content at one point. Now we do, and all of a sudden you guys are complaining. Come on!
Oh, boy, we have fun around here, don't we?
I thought you wanted to go through the history of the league, Alex Trebek style. We haven't even done that yet.
We haven't even done that yet.
Unbelievable. We need new personnel behind the cameras, I think. This is unbelievable. Anyway, so we had our first ever playoff game outside of the state of California this year. The Vegas Golden Knights Gray took on Vegas White in that first quarterfinal, as it were. Heath Mensch had a couple of goals in that one. Big win for Vegas Gray. They swept the season series against Vegas White. So then that equated to having our first team from outside of the state win a playoff game as well. It was going to happen one way or another. Vegas Gray came over here, played Capistrano United last night. Pretty good Division II bracket. And then it all culminated last night with Pacific Ridge taking on St. John Bosco up at Anaheim Ice right as the JV teams were playing each other, and the results were the same.
Well, very interesting to have both teams that have both have had a ton of success on both sides of the coin, whether it be varsity and JV, and to see them battle off at Anaheim and here at Great Park Ice. But to see Pacific Ridge take down Bosco in a game when just a week ago St. John Bosco took them down in the Caja State Championships. Obviously, there's got to be a little bit of smiling on the Pacific Ridge side.
To be fair, the Braves were a little short-staffed. You look at it, they only had about 8 or 9 skaters, so Pacific Ridge was able to take advantage of that. And you may have heard some stuff going on behind us here as we've been doing the show. The Pacific District Championships are going on. So you have players doing a lot of different things. That may have impacted that a little bit, but you can't fault Pacific Ridge for taking advantage of the team that was in front of them, and they did so in a big manner. I mean, we were finishing up here, and you were marking off the score as it just went 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0 very quickly, and the Firebirds took advantage of it.
Yeah, they went up 7-0 in that game right out of the gate, ended up winning it 8-2. Big night for Pacific Ridge. Nick Showman had the first couple of goals in the game for Pacific Ridge. Firebirds advanced to the championship game for the first time at varsity level, and they're going to take on, and how about this, Capistrano United. Chuck, we started the year on October the 5th with those two teams down in Carlsbad. They're going to end it tonight at 8 o'clock.
And that's the most perfect thing, too, because obviously you guys weren't there, but I had the opportunity, you probably saw it, but I had the opportunity to call the final game of the regular season between these two clubs. And that was, if we had the top 5 after that, that would have been a top 5 game. You had Pacific Ridge tying it, I want to say, with 13 seconds left. They went into a shootout, and basically Pacific Ridge, I think, won 2-1 or 3-2 or something like that. Absolutely outstanding. I love the goaltender. And you know what? They have some offensive prowess, too. I mean, they can score. You have the Cajuns and a couple other players, but they play a defensive-style hockey, but on top of it, they'll punch you in the mouth. And they will. And that's my saying for today, by the way, punch you in the mouth.
And what's really fun, I think, that we're going to get to enjoy today for particularly the second 2 games, the teams playing in those games don't like each other very much. So it's not only setting up to be close games with the way those teams have played, but also very physical, very dramatic games, and that's what we like to broadcast here.
Well, Coach Perkins talked about it a little bit earlier, that Pacific Ridge wanted to get some revenge against St. John Bosco. Capo's going to be the one going out for revenge tonight. They're 0-5 against the Firebirds in all competitions this year.
Well, I've had talks with both Coach Juan Trevino and Coach John LeBay and respective teams, and as much respect as they have for each other off the ice, when it comes to being on the ice, both of them want a piece of each other. And although Pac Ridge has had the better of the games this season, I'm just kind of waiting for Capo to wait for their time, and maybe tonight is the night.
Well, you've seen Santa Margarita has been was finished number 1, right, in Division 1. But Jay Serra won the season series against Santa Margarita for the first time in 5 years, I believe.
And swept him for the first time ever.
Exactly. Yeah. So you may see a reversal of fortunes for both teams there. The ones that were on the losing end necessarily in the regular season may come out in the playoffs. It's a whole different animal.
Yeah, that's true. So
especially when teams like that get together And Capo and Pack Ridge are developing that rivalry already, and they're fairly close to only being separated by Camp Pendleton. So
well, it's kind of interesting too that at both of those divisions you haven't had a runaway team, unlike in past years where Santa Margarita last year was the runaway team in that division. Orange Lutheran a couple of years ago in the Division 1 was the runaway team, and no one could really catch them, even though there were some close games here and there. The parity, as Chuck's favorite word alluded to, was the key at those top two divisions in particular. Was it La Jolla Country Day that Pacific Ridge could not beat? Was that they were the ones that they couldn't beat, right? And Capo could not beat Pacific Ridge. So, theoretically, if you had a series between those, you may not come out with a winner because they would keep beating each other. And the same thing is the case at Division 1. I mean, Bellarmine was leading the division 3 weeks into the season, if you remember the way the schedule had shook out. And then at different points you had Damien up top, and then J. Sarah and Santa Margarita were all taking their turns rotating to the top of that division. So I don't think you can really put your money on any one of these teams. Pacific Ridge maybe has a little bit of a head start with the head-to-head record during the year, but they're going to be fantastic games.
It's going to be a fun game to watch tonight. It is at 8 o'clock, the Division II final. It's the H&S Ventures Cup final between Pacific Ridge, the number 1 seed out of D2, and the number 2 seeded Capistrano United Coyotes. That was another division that was pretty much all chalk. Bosco did beat La Jolla Country Day a 5-over-4. I don't know how much of an upset that is, but everything else was pretty much straight shooting all the way to the final. So then we move on to Division 1. And of course, things got started with the quarterfinals. J. Sarah and Damien took care of business. Santa Margarita got the bye to the semifinals, being the number 1 overall seed. And then the Lions took down Damien, which has seemed to have been a trend a little bit here lately. Santa Margarita knocked out Tahoe, ended Tahoe's run. They could have gone to the final for the 3rd year in a row, but they couldn't get past the Eagles. And that sets it all up tonight, 6 o'clock on the sheet of ice behind us, Mike. J. Sarah, Santa Margarita for the Shulman Cup.
Well, I've been a part of these games in the past, and there's a lot of rivalry there just because of the geography. The schools are so close together. The kids know each other. They went to grade school together. They played against each other, or they played with there's just so many reasons why it's such a big rivalry. And it's not just hockey. Anytime a Trinity League team plays another Trinity League team in any sport, it could be cards, it could be pinochle, whatever, but there's always going to be a rivalry there. And of course, the other sports come into play too, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, soccer, whatever it is, and hockey's no different. So I expect to see some big crowds here tonight from both schools. And Santa Margarita always brings out a nice student section. I expect the J. Sarah faithful to come out as well and be here to be a part of it. So it should be a very exciting game. I expect the Eagles are going to have to keep an eye on Blake Reed, and the Lions are going to have to keep an eye on Joey Belichikia, Brendan Williams, maybe a couple others.
Mike, I don't know if you were paying extra close attention to the highlight reels from last week from the top players of all time, but you did make an appearance in Brian Desmond's reel, shaking his hand, unfortunately, at the end of the 2014 championship.
Although there's a hotly contested games and some bad blood along the way, I always felt like the relationship that I had with some of those kids and working with them in different areas, one of them being Team California. Which is where Brian and I had a chance to really get to know each other the season before. And then that season, every time that we played against each other, afterwards he'd come up and give me a hug, pat me on the back, win, lose, or draw, whatever it was. So it was always fun to have those rival games. But afterwards, guys like that, Brian Desmond, who's really kind of the consummate
and he went on and had a great career at ACHA D2 at Denver. Was a leader for them over there. You see that moving on. This league doesn't necessarily churn out, NCAA talent after NCAA talent, but they do happen. Speaking of, Santa Margarita with Jake Rosenbaum, who was among the top players as well. But I think you were talking about the impact the league has had. Seeing it in the Northern California area as well as down here in Southern California is that you see a larger number of players that are moving on to play at levels that are notable, whether it be junior, whether it be ACHA D1, D2, D3, these players are moving on. You see them; they're continuing their hockey careers at the junior level, or going and getting an education at the college level.
Well, the great news right now in the game of hockey is that if you truly want to play the game, if you enjoy it, you want to compete, there's a place for you somewhere. Whether it be at the junior level, whether it be at the college level, ACHA club, Division I, Division II, Division III, or even into the NCAA levels, which we're seeing a few more players from our league getting into those levels as well. In fact, you mentioned Jake Rosenbaum is playing at the University of Minnesota Duluth right now. I think they're the second or third ranked team in the country, the Division I NCAA level right now. They just lost to St. Cloud State in overtime last night in a real heated NCHC game, and very exciting to see a young man like that. Then you also have Kyle Mayhew, Slava Demon at Denver University as well, playing in NCDC as well, or NCHC as well. So it's exciting to see that. It's exciting to see young people learn and grow and develop here in our league, and then attain their goals in other places.
A lot of people have their eyes high up. They want to go to the higher levels, NCAA. They want to go on and play minor pro, go play pro. That's your goal when you start playing hockey and you play into your teens. If you're anywhere a decent player, that's where you want to go. But we saw girls playing out here in the JV games yesterday. That's very important. You were talking about potentially having an all-girls team in the league next year as well. And people are shocked when I tell them that there are over 400 ACHA teams at the 5 different divisions that we talk about.
That's the point. There's a place for you. If you want to play the game, there's a place for you. And for those young men or women that want to go out and continue their education and grow their education as a primary source, they can still play the game of hockey at a competitive level at so many different colleges and universities that offer the ACHA club hockey for them.
Yeah, so I think definitely look at the rosters of today's game and follow them a couple years down the line. I would not be shocked if 3/4 of them are on a roster somewhere else playing junior college from this point onward.
We got to get these two their own show.
Right, exactly. My goodness.
Yeah, I think they could handle an hour.
If only we had a forum somewhere to do that.
Yeah. If only we did.
Oh, I'm sorry, you guys here?
Yeah. Welcome back.
I was going to say, I haven't watched enough hockey. These two are talking about Grand Prairie State, St. Cloud State, and stuff like that.
Mike was saying, that I've been around broadcasting. Mike might remember from me refereeing his games back in the day as well. I've been
I'm glad that ended.
I've been a proud card-carrying zebra for almost 2 decades now. So, there's a lot of different ways to involve, and you guys talk about this all the time on the show. If the players in this league don't continue playing, many of them move into the referee ranks. Mike Polar's Chuck's favorite, and
Ryan Sanchez.
Yeah, exactly.
Played at Orange Lutheran, and I see him at all different levels, high school level, even in the youth level. One day, my son has a game over at Yorba Linda, and here comes Ryan Sanchez on the ice. He says, "Coach, how you doing?"
So you're saying that we got to talk to Art Catano and make sure that all the former Olu players they're like the Switzerland when Jay Sarah Santa Margarita get together. They should be the referees for those games.
That's too funny. But I also now realize why Black Dog Hockey's colors are black and white. Now I know where it came from. It was some sort of
some kind of referee.
I like monochromatic
subconscious
colors.
Refereeing.
Well, Andy, your story a little bit is interesting because your involvement in hockey here in California. You played at San Jose State, correct?
That's correct.
And then you got into
2011.
and then you got into reffing, and then you get into broadcasting. The game of hockey is so awesome. You see myself, I'm involved in the broadcasting side of it. It's been very fun. If you really love the game, there's something out there for you to be a part of.
Yeah, I actually got into refereeing we've derailed from the D1 championship. It's going to be great. Come watch it. But I started refereeing in the year 2000 at age 12. And my parents told me that I had to referee or they wouldn't pay for me to play anymore because I was taking too many penalties. I scored 100 points in my Pee Wee year, but I also had 123 penalty minutes in a 45-game season.
My kind of player.
Yeah, what's that?
My kind of player.
Yeah, I was a little Brad Marchand. Basically, my parents said, you need to start refereeing because we're not paying for you to sit in the penalty box, and we want you to learn how to do stuff so that the refs won't see it. But really, it gave me another understanding of the game, and I was able to cut those penalty minutes down in half the next year, and by the time I got into midgets, 18U now, I was at 20 minutes of penalties a year, and still scoring because I wasn't sitting in the box. But I also understood and respected, and you learn how to talk to officials more respectfully. You understand the game better. I'm explaining rules to my coaches that don't know what the rules are, specific rules that are happening out there. It just makes you a more complete player and a more complete person, and prepares you to go on, whether you're going to play at a higher level or be a coach, that you're more well informed.
Well, you just gave me a fantastic idea for my 12-year-old son.
So yeah, before we dive into
Miko, you're gonna be a ref.
before we dive into the 3 championship games a little bit further, because we're going to dissect them just a little bit before we get off the air, I do want to talk about something you mentioned a little bit ago in Team California.
Yep.
You talked about knowing a lot of these players and seeing their development as they go along. We're going to have a lot of kids who are on Team California represented here today in these championship games.
We
Talk
sure
a
are.
little bit about this showcase that's going to be happening in April.
Yeah, so St. Louis, Missouri, mid-April. We've already had our tryouts. We already have our team picked. You can go on to caja.com and see that roster. Jeff Noviello is going to be the head coach. I'm going to be the assistant coach. Back together again. Jeff and I had we both did the very first Team California. I don't even know how many years ago, but it's progressed, and we've had a representative at the America's Showcase. Originally, it was called the Chicago Showcase, and moved to Pittsburgh, and now from Pittsburgh to St. Louis, and teams around the around the country represent, and even some cities like Philadelphia represents just themselves, and then Pennsylvania also has a team, and Pittsburgh has a team as well. But Team California will be going to St. Louis in mid-April to represent California, and the majority of the players that are on our Team California are from the Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League. So very exciting for us that we're sending so many players to be a part of that, and our hope is to get them some opportunities, either be at the junior level or at the college level, whether it be NCAA or ACHA club hockey as well. And that'll be really part of my job with the team, is to help advise and talk with the players and talk with coaches that'll be there scouting and recruiting these fine young players that are going to represent us here in California.
I am particularly shocked that the cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh couldn't find it in themselves to come together and form a cohesive team like we do here in California.
Really?
Shocked.
Really? You should see when they play against each other.
I'm sure there's a lot of love in the building when
Yeah.
those two teams hit the ice. That's for
I
certain.
mean, they would just be arguing over what color the jersey was. They could
both
agree
are
on
right.
black, but is it orange? Is
or
it yellow? Is it
I'm partial to the orange, but okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about these championship games. We're going to dive into them a little bit deeper. We're going to start at 4 o'clock. It's the Commissioner's Cup Final in Division III, Corona Norco and Irvine United. This is the first title game appearance in the history of the Warriors for Corona Norco. It's their second. They made it in the 15-16 season, lost to Capistrano United. Chuck, I want to talk to you about this high-powered Corona Norco offense. Who are some of the guys we're looking out for here today?
Oh, you have to look out for everybody, to tell you the truth. There's not a player that you're not going to be looking out for right here. I honestly think that this team has a lot of balanced scoring, and they're going to be able to put the puck in the net. On top of it, I mean, a great defense as well. It's going to be tough, honestly, for Irvine United. I mean, Irvine United's come up and they've had a great playoff series. It's going to be a fun game, and it's going to be fun to see what Coach Hutch can do to sit there and try to thwart that forecheck for Corona Norco.
I think Jacob Hahn's going to get tested a lot tonight by the likes of Buckley Roberts, Donovan Gutierrez, Eric Strong. A lot of those guys can go out there and put the puck in the back of the net.
Yeah, so I'm looking to see the start for Irvine United. That's going to be concerned with most when watching the game, is if they can come out and get some sustained pressure in their offensive zone early, and then give Jacob Hahn just a little bit of a breathing room to start. Then I really like the Irvine United chances. But Chuck is exactly right. The depth scoring for Corona Norco is there definitely going to be weighed in their favor.
They met once in the regular season. It was back on December the 22nd. It was a 4-0 win for Corona Norco in a game over at Anaheim. We saw Irvine out in the Vegas showcase this year. They had a pretty nice showing, and they've made a nice run through this postseason. So we'll see what happens later on tonight when the trophy that is right here to my left, your right, looking at the screen, gets handed out.
As your notes say for us here, Eric, you're going to have a first-time varsity winner in this game, whichever team wins. Corona Norco's only opportunity there in 2015-16 versus Capo Capo at the Division II level just rolled over for a handful of years there. They were one of the top squads, really tough to beat until St. John Bosco came in and knocked them out a couple of years ago. The fighting Daniel Labayas.
Don't forget the Andrews Cole Holtgrens too. For Villa Park. Yeah.
But I remember that Corona Norco varsity championship game. That again, they were powered by, in that game, strong defense and great goaltending that really kept them in that game and that almost got them past Capistrano United. So it's interesting that the team at the D3 level has rebuilt more as a balanced offensive attack here, going against a team that's strong on defense in the Irvine United squad. So it'll be a mix of styles and see which one wins out, whether it's offense or defense. I think based on the way this one's framed, if Corona Norco gets over 4 goals in the game, the game's over.
That's why I thought if Irvine United can go in and get a sustained attack going a little bit and then keep the puck out of their zone, they'll have some success. But if Corona Norco can get it in the offensive zone and get some time in there, it's going to be difficult for Jacob Hahn to keep the puck out of the back of the net.
4 p.m. tonight, Commissioners Cup Final on Black Dog Hockey. If you can't make it out here at 5 Point Arena, we'll have it for you. The second game on the docket at 6 o'clock is the Showman Cup Final. It's the Division I championship game. Jay Serra, Santa Margarita meeting in the D1 title game for the 4th time. It's also known as the
Mother of all battles.
Thank you, Chuck. And they've met 3 times before for the Division I championship, but the Showman Cup, the one that is right here to my right, your left, is the one that is on the line tonight for the first time between these two teams. This cup didn't exist the first 3 times they met.
No, exactly. The one thing is, though, it's going to be very interesting to see. Santa Margarita, after the first 2 losses to Jay Serra early in the season, they kind of did the Perky type of, basically Craig Johnson kind of did the Perky type of coaching where he let his team peak at the end. However, Jay Serra last week in the state championships had a different, something different to say about that as they beat Santa Margarita by a 2-1 margin in overtime. So it's going to be very interesting to see because Santa Margarita has a burr under the saddle right now. I think they're going to come out and they're going to be hot and they're going to be playing with a little bit more vigor than they did last week.
I'm going to tell you right now the deciding factor for me is going to be in the net for the Jay Serra Lions and Jack Verletic. Jack's play throughout the course of the season, and of course last weekend in the Caja State Championships was impeccable. He's put together a fine senior season, and he's really the backbone of that team. And if you saw the games last weekend, Santa Margarita carried a lot of the play over the course of the weekend in both overtime games, but Jack Verletic stood tall and made some big saves when they really needed it. So keep an eye on him. But of course, you can never take your eyes off of Blake Reed and his ability to score goals. But they have more depth than that in players like Jake Hager and Brett Rudy and a few other players that are going to come in to play here tonight. So
Verletic is a spunky individual, at least from what we've seen.
Not when you interview him, he's the toughest guy you ever made. It's just like, dude, you're the one behind the mask.
He's such a mild-mannered person. I don't know if you guys have ever met him. But he's soft-spoken, highly intelligent young man. And but when he's on the ice, he's got some fire in him.
I think what I'll be watching is the emotional game, because I think on the Jay Serra side in particular, you have more emotional-based players. Blake Reed, Jack Verletic, you mentioned, play with a lot of heart, a lot of emotion. They wear it on their sleeve. If Jay Serra is able to get out to a quick start with those 2 leading the way, I think they'll be very tough to come back on. Santa Margarita is a little more even keel. They're the defending champs. They're the ones that have the cup. They're the ones that Jay Serra is trying to take it away from. So I think the ball's a little bit more in their court to just kind of, I think maybe the first 5-10 minutes stem the tide of what Jay Serra is going to come out with, because I think they're going to come barreling out of the gates. We talk about Jake Hager on the back end, maybe looking to lay a big hit on somebody. Blake Reed always looking to lay a big hit on someone as well. And Verletic, the first time an Eagle gets into his crease, I think there's going to be a paddle and a stick going towards someone's area. So I think it's going to be a fantastic game, and the fact that this is our second game of the night is really going to be one that's going to tee things up for the end of the night as well.
Yeah, it really will. And this, of course, the first year in history, the way that the record books are written out, the first championship one was in 2011, 2012. That was Jay Serra. They beat Santa Margarita. And then the following 2 years, Santa Margarita beat Jay Serra. So Lions trying to even up the score here tonight. and we'll see what will happen. That game will be at 6 o'clock on this ice right behind us. The two teams that have appeared in the title game the most in league history, 5 for JSerra and 6 for Santa Margarita once we drop the puck later on this evening. Our final game of the night will be in Division 2. It's going to be the same matchup that kicked off this entire season. We started October 5th at Icetown Carlsbad. It was Pacific Ridge, Capistrano United, and now tonight in the HNS Ventures Cup Final, the Division 2 Championship, those two teams will meet again to end the season. It'll be the final game of the season as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. We mentioned it, Pacific Ridge 5-0 against Capistrano United this year. Let's see if they can get that big one here to wrap it up.
And let's see if they can put more than 2 goals against Patty O'Donnell. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I think it's not the matter of keeping Pacific Ridge at bay with scoring-wise. It's a matter of getting the puck past Patrick O'Donnell. O'Donnell has been my favorite goaltender all season to watch. Honestly, what just a trick. We interviewed him.
He was a great interview.
Yeah, great interview. Perfect, and he plays with a fire too. Just a little more silent fire than Jack Valetic does. But boy, you want to talk about somebody when he's in the zone. He's a tough kid to beat.
Let me tell you, Pac Ridge has a whole list of names: O'Donnell, Cashew, Showman, Shoemake, Proof, Moore. I mean, those players right there are the core and heartbeat of that group down there at Pac Ridge that Juan Trevino has built up, and I'm going to be interested to see how that group there really takes it to the ice tonight.
The scary thing is they have, as we saw last night, they got a whole slew of players coming up too.
Yeah, that's true. And Todd Cadieux is going to hate that I'm saying this on the air because I told him this yesterday, and he was like, "Don't say that. You're going to jinx me." But I have to bring it up because it's just a stat. Only one team has ever won what I'm calling the double. Varsity title and a JV title in the same season, and that was Santa Margarita back in 2012 and 2013. Pacific Ridge could do it tonight. They won a JV title last night. They have a chance to win a varsity championship today.
Interestingly enough, you've got the top seed in all 3 varsity divisions in the final. You have to look back through the record books to see if that's ever happened and if all 3 top seeds have ever won all at once. Offhand, I don't know that that's necessarily the case. There's always been some sort of Villa Park tripping up Capo along the way, or the top seed in Division 1 getting knocked out somewhere in the semifinal, or late in the final. You don't necessarily
Santa Margarita.
JSerra, yeah, exactly. So that's another small, behind-the-scenes storyline for us. The players on the ice don't care what the other divisions are doing, but it's a storyline for us to think about in a historical perspective. And
well, I definitely have to talk about Capo though for a few seconds here on John LePay's team. And then you got to look at the names on that side as well, where it's Lane, Stenari, Hoagland, Ivansek, Kennedy. I mean, the names in the list go, Crawford, the names go on and on in that group there. So they have their cast of characters as well. So I know Coach LePay will have them ready. Coach LePay wears his heart on his sleeve, so I guarantee his players will be doing the same thing here tonight.
Vegas Gray played a great game against Capistrano United last night. It ended up being 5-2 Coyotes. The score really didn't indicate the way the game was played, but when Vegas Gray scored a goal to make it, I think it was 4-2 at the time, John lost his mind on the bench, and they were in pretty decent control at that time, but everything worked out okay.
Doesn't surprise me.
In that game last night too, Zach Lane and Joel Stenari had a goal that they made it look so easy that I could even go out there and felt like I could have done it. It was just a smooth passing, a little 1-2 touch between the two of them. That line,
Dominic,
Dominic
as well.
But those two last night, they were completely in sync, and we'll see if they can carry it over to tonight.
Well, you got a player like Dominic who's got some high-end speed and a great shot. And he's the kind of guy that can break a game open. But you're right, Stenari and Lane have developed some symmetry there and an ability to work with each other. So it'll be interesting to see if Coach LePay puts Stenari, Lane, and Dominic on the same line, because when he does, that's a very potent line.
Well, we remember, too, back in that first game of the season, Zach Lane wasn't there.
Yes.
So it's not like Patrick O'Donnell has seen a ton of the 3 of them all together at the same time, and maybe a great strategy going forward and into tonight. Capistrano United, and this is for Andy, who's more of a Bay Area guy, they're kind of like the San Francisco Giants of the league. They win every even year. They won in 2014, they won in 2016, they won in 2018. No team has ever repeated as Division II champions, and the Coyotes have a chance to do that today.
As an Oakland A's fan, I'm not happy with that comparison.
I didn't know your baseball preference, but now I know.
Well, I'm not anti-Giants like many A's fans. I'm happy when the Giants do well, just as long as it's not done again's the A's.
Okay, that makes sense. So 1989 turned out okay.
Yeah.
After all.
Maybe not for a lot. So that earthquake. I took off right before that
Other
earthquake.
than that.
That earthquake, yeah.
Oh goodness. So those are our
I
three.
was 3.
That's scary.
I was also 3.
Wow.
So we'll hand out that H&S Ventures Cup right there in the middle tonight to either the Firebirds or the Coyotes. Gentlemen, as we wrap up the show, our final one during gameplay of the year, what are some of your fondest memories from the season? I'll start with you, Coach.
You know, I got to look at the showcase. You know, I know everybody wants, you know, and Chuck's probably going, oh man, did he have to bring that up? But the showcase is always a great event because we bring all the teams together, and some of the games are league games, some of them aren't. So there's some, you know, that are a little bit more hotly contested than others. But it's just such a great event, and I can see something like that growing and growing. But you know, if you ask me, you know, it still remains to be seen here tonight. The big games are what I enjoy watching and enjoy being a part of and calling the games for. And whether it's the JCR Santa Margarita, which I've been on the bench for, and now I'm going to be in the booth for, I'll be very excited to see that game tonight. And you know, although maybe I have some heartstrings, you know, I just want to see a good hockey game.
That's a good point. Andy, I'm going to jump to you. What's something that you're going to remember from this 18-19 season?
I think the opening of this facility, the moving of our main production here, was a big step forward for us. I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for what we can do from a technical side of things. We've already been talking with Matt a bit about that for things that we could potentially do on the horizon. But I think it's in an overall sense, it's been a great year of pushing the boundaries of things, and it just reminds me of how much fun it is to cover this league and be a part of it, and we're very privileged to be able to do that. You know, to be able to see players move on through the ranks, whether they're with partners that we work with or not. You know, it's a great thing to see. For example, Shane Gilbert potting 2 game-winning goals for the Ogden Mustangs on back-to-back nights late in the third period. Former J. Sarah Lion that you know, Mike knows well, and went up and played for Tahoe as well. And just to see those types of names pop up, you're like, oh, there's another Anaheim Ducks high school hockey player. At times, I'm passing on information to broadcasters from other partners of ours saying, here's a list of guys and where they played and coming out of the Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League. And it's just a testament to this league and its growth, and it's we're very happy to be a part of it.
And we're happy to have you. And we couldn't do this without you, so that's for sure. And Chuck, memories from the season.
Well, it has to start off from the way back where we first started from. That's going to be the game between Pacific Ridge and Capital United, not only for the game itself, but just for the camaraderie. I'm going to cry, but anyway, between all of us. I mean, you know, we get to travel amongst, you know, have us all travel together. And of course, Mike, you know, brings up the Vegas showcase. That's always fun. So we always have to be behind the scenes hijinks between us all and stuff like that. That's a great time. But also just the game itself. I mean, just to see how San Diego has immersed themselves now into the Southern California hockey picture. I think that's just a huge benefit, not only for the entire state, but for our league as well. And it's just a testament because they don't have a football team, as I mentioned before. You see 400 kids sitting there at like what would be like a homecoming game for them and see the atmosphere right there. And it just shows you how big hockey has became in Southern California. It was drifted down the 5, and it's now taking part in San Diego as well.
For a half second, I thought you were talking about the Chargers, so I was unsure a little bit. But yes, no, I realized you were talking about Pacific Ridge. Yeah.
That's a good point. And I think for me, the biggest thing I'm going to take away from the season is the fact that we've been able to bring you this show from 4 different locations this year. And it's not just about the fact that we have a show. It's you get to watch the kids out on the ice every single night when we broadcast the games to you, but you don't really get to know them. And we've been able to bring them to you and get to know them a little bit with every show that we've been able to do so far this season. And we hope to be able to do that in the future. Tonight is going to wrap up your and I's 10th year calling games for the Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League and doing the report card now in our 2nd season. And we're hoping that
29.
Yeah, that's true. That we hired him when he was 19. But we're hoping that we get renewed for a 3rd season and get to bring you the report card again next year. This has been a lot of fun, guys. We
this is
did this
great.
in 4 cities.
I just want to say thanks to both you and Chuck, and of course Matt and Christian and Austin behind the scenes.
Big ups. Christian and Austin behind the scenes.
honored
work.
and privileged to be able to be a part of this.
My liege.
It's just a whole other aspect of the game of hockey that I'm happy to be a part of. So thank you guys for letting me be a part of it with you.
Oh, we're happy to have you too. This guy's brought a lot to our broadcast over the last
Oh my
couple
gosh,
of years.
we actually sounded intelligent. Andy, honestly, I was ready to step back when these two started talking. It's like, you guys don't need us. I was going to drop the mic.
We might
and
have to
walk
get a
away.
second
Yeah,
show. Do we have a
exactly.
budget for a second show?
Yeah, we had a nice little podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. Some ideas
Between
for
the
the future.
five. There you go. There you go. Right there. Right
The
there.
Eric Pessolano Show.
Yeah.
Did I say that out loud?
Featuring Mike Perkins and Andy Dickerson.
There you go.
Yeah, but mostly Mike Perkins and Andy Dickerson.
We got to go get set up for these games. We got an hour to puck drop.
Did we go an hour?
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
We gotta
made it
get
an
moving.
hour.
Good job, boys.
Oh yeah, we have a clock on our monitor there. Wow, how about that? Christian hates when I point out stuff behind the scenes, but I love doing it because it annoys him.
Folks, if you're not planning to tune into tonight's game, you should, because we got to go set up a bunch of extra stuff. Because if you tuned into the JV games last night, you might have seen we had multiple cameras, instant replay,
Replay's
some
my favorite.
super cool stuff behind the scenes for you. So
Love the
We're going
replay.
big time. We're going big time.
Replay helps with my scoring. Then I can add the assistant appropriately.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Art Trottier from the Anaheim Ducks, to Matt Blanchard, our commissioner, the Anaheim Ducks High School Hockey League. Mike mentioned everybody behind the scenes, Christian Ilton running the camera, doing the technical directing, to Austin Mader, who's our director of operations
I gotta
in the
mention Bainberger. I
ADHSHL.
gotta mention Bainberger.
John Mainberger, who's our JV commissioner, too, around here. He'll be here a little bit later on today. So big thanks to him as well. And of course, biggest thanks to Andy Dickerson for letting us borrow all this equipment and being able to give you this show for 11 episodes so far this season, and probably one more. Stay tuned for that. That we'll have a little bit later on in the future. For the Iceman, Mike Perkins, the Laser, Chuck Lasik, I'm Eric Pessolano saying so long from Great Park Ice and 5 Point Arena. Don't forget the ADHSHL Championship games tonight starting at 4 o'clock. You can go ahead and switch on over to Black Dog Hockey for the coverage of all 3 games. This has been the Report Card on Facebook Live, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.